This video is all about using up your scrap fabrics. I know that I've shown you a few different videos now on how to use your scrap fabrics up, but I've always found that I end up with even more scrap fabric. So in this video, I'm going to try and use as little or have as little scrap fabric left over, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. It's all going to be based on squares and rectangles. So basically, if I have a piece of scrap fabric like this, where there's like just this little bit off line here, I'm just going to tidy it up by making it a straight line. So let's get started here. And also, another thing you're going to have to turn on is, if you're anything like me and you have all your scrap fabrics like this, they're going to be all creased. So make sure that you have your iron handy, and then you can press all of your fabrics down. Now, I don't care which fabrics I'm going to be selecting. I'm just going to grab and go, because I want to really just make this super duper quick, and I just want to get the quilt done. And what I find that is, if you stick with the same colour scrap fabric, it ends up looking awesome anyway. I like it to look really uniform, so I'm going to start with this pink and build all of my blocks off this pink, all these pink scrap fabrics here. Let's get started. So I have this piece of scrap fabric here, and I am going to make sure, oops, I just knocked over my iPad. I'm going to make sure that I cut a straight line here. So I'm just going to cut straight down here in line with my mat. And I'll probably keep this to one side because I will make a rectangle out of this and use this as a piece of scrap fabric. I want to keep all the scraps really limited to just like little strips like this. And obviously this piece of fabric is really big, so I'm just going to cut this down. Let's cut it down. Just make sure that all your lines are straight. I'm just going to cut this into a few different things here. I want it just to be really random. Cut it down, cut this one down. And what I might do is, once I've built the blocks, if some of the blocks are still too big like this, I'm going to end up slashing it somewhere and then join it onto another line. And you'll see what I mean in a second. So I just want to get a few different scraps started here. I love this particular one. I think this is a Riley Blake fabric. And then I'm just gonna, so you can see what I'm doing, just like cut some pieces really random and just make sure that they're all straight cuts. What I might do with this piece here, I think this is some paper piecing that I did. I might just cut it off at like this end here, and then I'll probably just throw this away, if I'm honest, and keep this bit and obviously make it straight. This isn't straight, you can see it's all curved. Just make sure that you just have a load of straight lines. It's really simple. Now I have different weights of fabric. Now this is a broadcloth, and I don't like quilting with broadcloth because it's way too thin and I find it has a tendency to like pucker and stuff. So I like using proper quilting cotton. So this is just going to go straight into my scrap basket, and I've got it all nicely folded, so it's going to look neat and tidy again, like not like this where it's all messy. So it's going to be neat and tidy. So basically, these are all of my pink coloured scraps, and I've done it so they're all straight lines, and I can pick up pieces, put them next to each other, right sides together, and just start attaching them. And then I'll just cut off little sections if they don't quite reach, and that's what I'm going to do. So we're going to take it all over to the sewing machine and show you the next stage. This is the sewing machine that I use. It's the Baby Lock Soprano, and I absolutely love her. She's a great quilting machine. So let's get her all set up. For my top thread, I just have a regular polyester in the top thread, and in the bobbin I have a matching thread, and also on my foot here I have the 1/4 inch foot with guide, which is great for getting that 1/4 inch just perfect. I don't actually have to worry about it because of this guide right here. And these are the settings that I use for my straight stitch. Another reason that I like the Baby Lock Soprano is the fact that it tells you what foot to use, and it would be a regular foot J for the straight stitch. But obviously I have that different foot on, which is the 1/4 inch foot with guide. I'm going to keep all of my scraps next to me, and I'm not going to overthink anything. I'm just going to make sure that right sides meet right sides and start joining bits together. I'm going to sort the cutting out after the fact and just keep grabbing pieces and joining each bit together. Go this way with this one. So it's going to be quite quick once you get going. So I'm just going to go through joining 2 pieces together. And I don't care. Well, I'm going to try and match up the lengths the best I can, but I just don't want to be time wasting. I just want to get going. So you can see what I'm doing here. This should be a great way to use up your scraps. If you have one piece left over, just keep it to one side and you may be able to use it a little bit later. So you're going to have a whole stack of 2 sections, and what we're going to do is press them in order to have the right sides, having it facing to the darker side of the fabric. So that's what we're going to do, go through and press all of these right now. And in some instances I actually added a 3rd section just because it made sense. Now once you've pressed everything, we're going to square everything back up again. See how we've got this overhang of this piece of fabric? Well, we're going to make it all straight again. So I'm just going to match it up on my my mat here. I'm just going to get my rotary cutter, and I am just going to make sure that all this is square again. There you go. So I've got a perfect rectangle. So I'm going to put this to one side, and then we can join these up with other pieces in a little while. So I'm just going to do that again. So look on this section here where I've got 3 pieces going on. Oh, there we go. I've got this overhang here. So I'm just going to make sure, it's all lined up there. So make sure you've got a straight edge on one side, and then we can line this all up. Now it's up to you. If you want to save this little bit of scrap and feed it in again, you can totally do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to garbage this. And then I'm going to turn this fabric around. Going to make sure it's lined up to the line on one of my 1 inches here. And I'm going to take this ruler over here and I'm going to cut this side and make it straight. So there's only a little bit of wastage here. It's up to you. You can use it as stuffing filler. You can go ahead and use this scrap again and put it again onto one side. But I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to garbage this. So just go through and do that, making sure that they turn into like rectangles or squares. Just tidy them up so they're nice and perfect again. Then once you've tidied all your edges up again, you're going to do the same thing again and attach your next pieces right sides together. This one isn't a good example. I would want something a little bit longer, so I'm not wasting all of this at this side. Another thing that you want to bear in mind is if you do have a directional fabric, make sure it's facing the same way. I like using multi-directional fabric, so it doesn't really matter where these shapes end up being, but this is a definite one-way fabric and this is a definite one-way fabric. Otherwise you're going to have your fabrics upside down and it kind of looks a bit silly, so just be mindful of that when you're doing these kind of scrappy projects. So we're going to do exactly the same thing like we did before, only like obviously these are just bigger scraps, and we're just going to join these two with another two, try and get it so it's basically the same length, like these two are pretty much the same. So I join these two together. Might do it this way round. So you're going to repeat what we've just done, attaching more sheets, more pieces together until we get less and less. So I'll meet you at the next stage. So basically you're going to keep repeating this process. So you're just going to make sure that everybody's straight again. You're going to cut it off again. So you're going to make this a rectangle again. And then you're going to use this piece to add on to the next piece. So you're going to do that until you get one big piece, and then we'll move on to the next stage. So I have my one piece of fabric here, and I have this piece of fabric here that I can't join up to anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up to the end here, and I'm just going to cut straight across. And then I'm just going to join this part to the end. Now I have sewn the top piece to the bottom piece, and now I have one continuous length. This is where the fun really begins. I'm just going to get my rotary cutter and I'm just going to start cutting. What I might do is fold it in half. I'm going to fold it in half. Go. I'm going to make a crease at the bottom here. I'm going to cut this section in half. You can do whatever you want. I'm just going to make it even more scrappier. So then these two sections are exactly the same length, and you can just sew them two pieces together. And you just keep on slashing until you like the look of all of your scrap fabrics. So have you seen how you end up with these teeny tiny like quilt blocks? So I'm basically going to use my ruler here. Like, this is now my piece of fabric that I pretended that I've bought from the store, and I'm just going to cut it to 6 inches, because with this ruler that I'm using, it's 6 inches. So make sure that's straight and cut that. That is 1 6-inch strip, and then I'm going to square it off and do my blocks. This is one block. And I just continue on just cutting all of my blocks. Now, I will see you guys next week. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we will do something with these blocks. Thank you so much for watching. Bye guys.